Do you think the character of Evil Ash from the Evil Dead movies is just a creative horror fiction? What if I told you that Sam Raimi's iconic villain has roots in something far more disturbing than Hollywood imagination? Something the producers have worked desperately to disguise as mere entertainment? The truth has been carefully obscured, buried, but not completely erased. For decades, a pattern of incidents has remained hidden in plain sight, records sealed, witnesses silenced, evidence destroyed. But fragments remain, and when assembled, they tell a story more terrifying than any horror film, a story that continues to this day. A story that may now include you. It begins in 1971, long before The Evil Dead reached theaters. In the remote forests of northern Michigan, a hunting party discovered an abandoned cabin. Nothing remarkable at first glance. Weathered logs, broken windows, the expected decay of a forgotten structure. But inside, ranger reports documented something unusual. The interior walls were covered with symbols, not graffiti, not the random markings of vandals, precise, intricate patterns that defied explanation, carefully drawn in what appeared to be dried blood. Local authorities dismissed it as evidence of occult activity. Teenagers, they concluded. Satanic panic was beginning to sweep America. Easy to explain away. The symbols were photographed, then painted over. Case closed, or so they thought. What wasn't included in official reports: 3 members of that hunting party died within a month. Unusual accidents: 1 car crash, 1 drowning, 1 apparent suicide, each body exhibiting an identical mark on the left palm, a small, perfectly circular burn. No explanation, no connection made, just a coincidence. The cabin was scheduled for demolition, a routine forest management decision, but the demolition crew refused to complete the job. Their equipment failed repeatedly, tools disappeared, and each night they reported sounds from inside, the empty structure. Whispers, movement, watching. One crew member, Daniel Harkins, documented his experiences in a journal discovered among his possessions after his disappearance in 1972. The journal described a figure seen through the cabin's rear window, a figure that resembled Harkins himself, but wrong. His final entry: "It isn't my reflection. It smiles when I don't. It waits." Always watching. Harkins was never found. The cabin was eventually destroyed in a forest fire, officially classified as lightning strike, case file sealed under standard procedure, but a Forest Service photographer captured something unusual in the flames, a humanoid shape, standing, watching, smiling. The photograph disappeared from evidence lockup 3 days later. 8 years passed. In 1979, a film student named Samuel Raimi was researching locations for a low-budget horror movie in rural Tennessee. Local legend spoke of an isolated cabin with a dark history. Raimi became fascinated with the stories, tales of mirrors that showed something other than reflections, of a book bound in unusual leather that had been found in the cabin's cellar decades earlier. Raimi interviewed locals about the legends, recorded their accounts. Those tapes were never made public. The only surviving crew member who claims to have heard them, production assistant Marion Lewis, described them as deeply disturbing. According to Lewis, one elderly resident spoke of a man who had become split in 2 after reading from the book. His reflection walked out of the mirror, the resident claimed, became something else, something with his face but not his soul. Lewis left the production shortly after, refused further interviews, changed her name, disappeared from public record in 1987. Production on The Evil Dead began in 1979. Difficulties plagued the set: equipment failures, unexplained accidents. Actor Bruce Campbell, who would portray the protagonist Ash Williams, reported recurring nightmares during filming. Always the same dream, standing before a mirror, watching his reflection move independently, its eyes all wrong. But the most disturbing incidents occurred during the filming of the sequel, Evil Dead 2, years later. The script called for the character Ash to battle an evil version of himself, a doppelganger, a reflection gone wrong. During rehearsals, multiple crew members reported seeing 2 Bruce Campbells on set simultaneously. The production logs dismissed these as pranks or confusion, Campbell himself refused to discuss certain scenes for years afterward. In a rare 1994 interview with an obscure horror fanzine, he mentioned that during the filming of the mirror scene, something changed in the room. The temperature dropped, and I saw... The interviewer noted that Campbell abruptly ended the conversation at this point. The fanzine ceased publication the following month. Its editor reported receiving strange phone calls, just breathing, just waiting. What few people know. 3 background actors who appeared in scenes with Evil Ash died under unusual circumstances within 2 years of the film's completion. Each death ruled accidental, each body bearing an identical mark on the left palm. A small, perfectly circular burn. The same mark described in the 1971 Michigan Ranger reports. The pattern continued. In 1992, a film student named Trevor Michaels began researching these connections for a documentary thesis. His work progressed for 6 months, then stopped. His apartment was found empty, computer wiped clean. No trace of his research, no evidence of foul play, just gone. His roommate reported only one unusual detail. In the weeks before his disappearance, Michaels became convinced that his reflection was moving wrong, watching him when he wasn't watching it. Officials dismissed the case as another college student disappearance, but they couldn't explain the condition of Michaels's bathroom mirror, shattered from within, glass fragments, scattered outward, as if something had broken out, not in. Years passed. The Evil Dead franchise grew in popularity, became a cultural touchstone, the perfect cover, fiction masking truth, entertainment disguising warning. The character of Evil Ash, a malevolent doppelganger born from reflection, entered horror canon. Just another movie monster, nothing more. But the pattern persisted. In 2004, a collector of horror movie memorabilia acquired what was claimed to be the original prop book from the first film, the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, supposedly a rubber fake, just a movie prop. He displayed it in his private collection. 3 weeks later, his home security system recorded unusual footage. The collector standing before a mirror at 3:17 a.m., perfectly still, for 6 hours. When the footage was discovered during the investigation of his disappearance, police noted something impossible. In the final frame, the mirror showed empty space. The collector was standing before it, but cast no reflection. He was never found. The prop book vanished from evidence lockup. Case remains open. A horror convention in Cleveland. Bruce Campbell was scheduled to appear but canceled last minute. The official reason: scheduling conflict. The truth, according to a convention staff member who requested anonymity, Campbell refused to enter the venue after seeing his own face on someone else in the crowd. Not a cosplayer, the staff member insisted. Something else, something wrong. Convention security footage for that day was corrupted, unusable, just static, just waiting. The pattern accelerated, expanded. Online forums dedicated to the Evil Dead franchise began documenting strange occurrences, users reporting dreams of a familiar figure, someone with their face but wrong eyes, posts describing mirrors that showed delayed movements, reflections that smiled when they didn't, most dismissed as creepypasta, fiction, fan engagement, but the disappearances were real. Between 2009 and 2013, 17 active members of Evil Dead fan communities vanished. Different cities, different states, different countries. No connections except one. Each had recently posted about seeing their reflection move wrong in the weeks before they disappeared. Law enforcement found no pattern, no evidence, no bodies, just empty homes, shattered mirrors, and in some cases, a small, perfectly circular burn mark on surviving personal items. In 2013, a data analyst named Sarah Chen noticed the pattern, began collecting incidents, mapping connections. Her research led her to a startling theory. The original Evil Dead filming location had been selected because of its history, not discovered by chance. The cabin, she suggested, had been a site of documented doppelganger phenomena for generations. Raimi hadn't invented the concept of Evil Ash. He had discovered something real and disguised it as fiction. Chen published her findings on an obscure paranormal research website. The article, was online for 17 hours before the entire site crashed. When it returned 3 days later, all references to her work were gone. Chen stopped responding to colleagues. Her apartment was found empty 2 weeks later, computer wiped clean, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Just taken. Her research notes, recovered by a colleague from a scheduled email delivery system set before her disappearance, contained one final disturbing discovery: a pattern of coordinates, locations where people had disappeared after reporting reflection anomalies. When mapped, they formed a specific pattern, the same symbols found on the walls of that Michigan cabin in 1971. The colleague forwarded this information to authorities. His email account was deleted within hours, his home found empty the next day. Case remains open. The release of a new Evil Dead television series, Ash vs. Evil Dead. During production, 3 crew members reported to set security about seeing someone with Bruce Campbell's face watching from the woods during night shoots. Security found nothing. The crew members requested transfers to different departments. Within a month, all 3 had left the production. 1 disappeared entirely. Case remains open. Campbell himself began to change his convention appearance policies around this time. No longer participated in mirror scenes with cosplayers, refused certain photo opportunities. When asked directly about Evil Ash at a 2017 convention, witnesses reported he simply stared, then walked off stage without answering. The moment wasn't captured on video. Every recording device in the room experienced simultaneous malfunction, just static, just waiting. The pattern continued to spread, to evolve. In 2018, facial recognition researchers at a major technology company discovered an anomaly in their testing data. Certain facial scans were triggering system errors. When isolated, the affected images showed nothing unusual to the human eye, but the AI consistently flagged these faces as duplicate entries with conflicting data. The common factor: all were people who had recently viewed or discussed Evil Dead 2, specifically the mirror scene. The research was discontinued, classified. 3 team members requested psychiatric leave within the following month. 1 disappeared. Case remains open. A film archivist working on a documentary about practical effects in horror discovered unusual frames in the original Evil Dead 2 film negative. Frames not present in any released version. Images of Bruce Campbell standing in the cabin set, but with someone else reflected in a mirror. Someone with his face, but wrong eyes. The archivist contacted Raimi's production company for comment. 3 days later, a small fire destroyed that specific section of film. Classified as electrical accident, the archivist abandoned the project, reported feeling watched, moved without leaving a forwarding address. Current whereabouts unknown, the pandemic global. Lockdowns. People isolated in homes with mirrors, with reflections. Reports of reflection anomalies increased exponentially across social media. Most dismissed as paranoia, cabin fever, mental health struggles during isolation. But the disappearances continued, escalated. People vanishing from locked homes, no signs of forced entry, nothing taken, just empty rooms, shattered mirrors. And sometimes, a small circular burn mark on abandoned personal items. Authorities, overwhelmed by the pandemic, had no resources to connect these cases, to see the pattern. But it was there, growing, watching, waiting, the release of Evil Dead Rise, a new installment in the franchise. During early test screenings, multiple audience members reported seeing their own faces in the film, not as extras, as reflections that shouldn't exist. The reports were buried, dismissed as publicity stunts. But theater employees noted an unusual pattern: shattered bathroom mirrors following certain screenings. No explanation. No vandalism caught on security cameras, just broken glass from within. And now, 2025. The pattern has evolved again, become more sophisticated, harder to track. The disappearances continue, but have become more selective, more patient. People vanish after engaging deeply with the franchise, after watching all the films in succession, after discussing Evil Ash online, after looking too closely at their reflections. What began in a Michigan forest has spread worldwide. What was once confined to physical mirrors now extends to digital screens, to cameras, to any reflective surface, waiting for you to notice, to see your reflection move wrong, to realize it's watching you when you're not watching it. The true horror isn't that Evil Ash was based on something real. The horror is that by disguising it as fiction, by making it entertainment, they've given it access to millions. Every viewing strengthens it. Every discussion spreads it. Every reflection becomes a potential doorway. Do you feel it now? That sensation of being observed? The slight movement in your peripheral vision? Don't look directly. It knows when you're watching. Some researchers theorize it can only fully emerge when acknowledged, when you consciously recognize that your reflection isn't quite right. That's when the separation begins, when it can step through, become something else, something with your face but wrong eyes. Others suggest it's always been here, that mirrors have always been doorways, that doppelgängers have always existed in folklore for a reason. The Evil Dead franchise didn't invent the phenomenon, it documented it, warned us, while simultaneously feeding it. The evidence mounts, the pattern expands. More disappearances each year, more shattered mirrors, more circular burn marks left behind. And always, just before someone vanishes, the same report. My reflection is moving wrong. This is why certain production materials remain unavailable. Why specific interview questions go unanswered. Why particular scenes are difficult to find in their original form. They're protecting us from something they can no longer control. Something that has outgrown its origins, something that watches from every reflective surface. Consider what you've seen in your own mirror recently. Those moments when movement doesn't quite sync, when your reflection seems to hold a position just slightly too long, when you turn away and feel it still watching. These aren't imagination, aren't tricks of light, they're glimpses of separation, of something using your reflection as a doorway. Bruce Campbell hasn't given a substantial interview about Evil Ash in years. When pressed, he deflects with humor, with practiced dismissals, but watch his eyes when the subject arises, the momentary fear he knows, has always known. Raimi, too, has carefully controlled which Evil Dead questions he answers, created a brilliant disguise of fictional horror to mask a documented phenomenon, to warn us while entertaining us, while feeding it. The pattern continues, evolves, spreads, from that Michigan cabin to worldwide, from physical mirrors to digital screens, from isolated incidents to global pattern. Always watching, always waiting, looking for the moment you realize your reflection isn't quite right, isn't quite you. Even now as you read these words, it might be watching, learning, waiting for you to look up, to check your reflection, to notice the discrepancy, the slight delay, the wrong eyes. Don't look directly at reflective surfaces after engaging with this material. Don't discuss Evil Ash online using your real name. Don't watch the mirror scenes from the films alone or at night. These aren't superstitions. They're survival strategies based on documented patterns of disappearances. The warning signs are consistent. First, the sensation of being watched when alone. Second, catching movement in reflections when standing still. Third, dreams of someone. With your face but wrong eyes. If you experience these, get rid of mirrors. Cover screens when not in use. Avoid reflective surfaces after dark. The final stage before disappearance, finding small, perfectly circular burn marks on personal items. If these appear, you have hours at most. It's already separating, already becoming something else, something with your face but not your soul. Why share this information if it's so dangerous? Because awareness is the only defense. Fiction made it powerful. Truth might contain it, might save the next potential victim, might save you. The Michigan cabin is gone. The original film negatives altered, the witnesses silenced or missing. But the pattern remains for those who know where to look, for those willing to see the truth behind the fiction, the real horror behind Evil Ash. It spreads through engagement, through awareness, through reflection. The more you know about it, the more likely it notices you. Yet ignorance leaves you defenseless. This is the perfect trap, the perfect predator. One that uses knowledge of itself as the lure. What happens to those who disappear? No bodies are found, no evidence remains. Some researchers theorize they're replaced, that the doppelganger takes their place, becomes them, but wrong, different. That someone in your life right now might not be who they appear to be, might be something else wearing their face, their life. Others suggest a darker fate, that the original is consumed, absorbed, becoming fuel for the reflection's manifestation, that somewhere behind every mirror is a shadow realm filled with the originals, watching their doppelgangers live their lives, trapped, aware, screaming silently from behind glass. The truth may be worse than either theory. The circular burn marks suggest a process more complex than replacement or consumption, a transformation, a merging, becoming neither fully original nor reflection, but something else, something in between, something that exists in both worlds simultaneously. You've read this far. It knows you now. Might be watching through your screen, through the black mirror of your device, through any reflective surface nearby. Notice how you feel the urge to check, to look at your reflection, to confirm it's still you. Don't. If you've made it to these words, you're already part of the pattern, already potentially marked. But there are protections, ways to break the connection, to close the doorway. Comment below with the phrase "mirrors lie" to receive the protective information, to join those who know, who watch for wrong reflections, who document the disappearances, who fight against whatever emerged from that Michigan cabin decades ago and now wears countless faces. Like this video if you're brave enough to check your mirror tonight. Subscribe to join our community of watchers, of those who know the truth behind evil ash, behind every reflective surface. Remember, your reflection doesn't need to blink, doesn't need to breathe. Has all the time in the world to wait for you to notice the discrepancy, the delay, the wrong eyes. It's patient, eternal, always watching, always waiting. Do you dare look now?